Today, we're going to go over my January wrap-up. I am filming this on January 31st, having just finished my last book of the month. I did it. I actually accomplished a fair bit of what I set out to do on my TBR. There are some caveats, but I'm really happy about it because I think I read about 31,000 pages, not including works that I'm still going into. And it's kind of my goal, is I want to try and get to about 100 pages a day this year. That I feel means that I'm really putting aside the time that I want to put aside for reading. I decided that I'm going to maybe switch up my wrap-up style for this video. We'll see how it works. I only read 7 books, but I'm really happy with what I read. Like I said, lots of pages, lots of really good reads. Like, I have a lot of highly rated things that I read this month, and I'm really happy about it. And I'm kind of organizing it like my goals video. So I had some things that I was wanting to be intentional about this year, and I figure I might as well check in when it comes to these wrap-ups, like, did I do the reread? Have I done short stories, etc. So with that in mind, let's start with my reread, which I just finished, and that's The Girl in the Tower by Katherine Arden. I loved it. This story is a lot more action-packed than the first one in the installment, so if you read the first one and you didn't like exactly how atmospheric it was, this still has a lot of dark fairy tale, fantasy, horror energy vibes, but it's a lot more action-packed, and it's... I don't want to spoil it, but there are certain tropes that, if you like them, are really well done in this book. Like, really well done. So if you're curious and you don't think tropes are like spoilers, ask me, and I will tell you. But like, you have Vasya and you've got Solovey, and they're getting into trouble. There's a lot of good sibling relationship stuff, lots of good commentary on gender roles, and it's also just a really good historical fiction. You can tell the love that Katherine Arden has for this older Russian culture. I think this is, I just mentioned this in the last video, I'll put it up there. It takes place in the past. It's actually meant to mimic a lot of the political tensions of that time, adding in the folklore elements of that time. And it's wonderful. It's, I think, really well paced for what it is. I think it's the appropriate length for the story it is, and I am so excited to continue my reread. Because there's a lot of things where it's like, when you read it the second time, you're like, oh, this puts things in a different frame. I really like that, and so I'm really glad I picked this one up. So, one reread down. I also want to try and do at least an arc a month, or at least get to 12 arcs throughout the year, and so I read The Mask of Mirrors by M.A. Carrick, which are 2 authors, and I will have them both linked in the description down below, and I really liked this one. I have a review for it, so I will try not to be too lengthy in my description here, but this is a con artist type of story with a lot of ballroom politicking, dream magic, a mysterious masked avenger. Oh, it was really fun. I couldn't put it down. I was setting aside time to read extra. It was the book that got me so excited for, like, reading a book on a Friday night in a blanket sort of thing for me. I was just captured by this work. Like I said, I cannot wait for the next series. I want to reread it right now. Every minute I'm away from this world, I miss how happy I was reading this story. It was really great. So that's all the gushing I'm going to do for this Venetian fantasy work. Like I said, there's a review in the cards if you're curious. This came out this month. It's really good. I would check it out if any of those things are kind of your fantasy buzzwords. I think it does what it means to do really well. I also want to read plenty of short story collections this year because I love short story collections. So the first one is Love After the End. This is an indigiqueer short story anthology, so lots of authors here, lots of different Native American backgrounds in this work, and I largely enjoyed it. I don't think any of the stories are standouts for me, but I enjoyed reading it with my friend Nikita. I enjoyed discussing the stories. I enjoyed learning more things that I didn't know. There are definitely some authors from this anthology that I want to go check out after reading it, but on the whole, there were none that really stuck out to me, and I can probably see that happening to me more and more often as I read more short stories that I'll be, I don't know, expecting something to stick with me. But I really enjoyed my time. I'm really glad I picked it up, and if you are looking for really palatable, fun sci-fi stories to give you a different lens on it, it's not the white lens, it's a different approach to a post-apocalyptic utopian view, because that is the theme of the collection, is we're looking at post-apocalyptic worlds through the native lens. I think that it is pretty interesting. And the next one I read, I finished out Machineries of Empire with Hexarchate Stories. I finally now have a review for the Machineries of Empire series, a should you read, a spoiler-free review where I say, I think you should read this if you like blank, etc. And this is the last one. And I hesitate to say it's like book 4 or anything, although it does have a component to it that if you love the trilogy, you would want to read. I had such a blast with this collection. I buddy read it with Kayla and Lena. I'll have their channels linked below. And it was super fun. It does what I like to have done in short story collections, where you can focus on the little things because you're only going to be there for like 4 or 5 pages. So we can look at this aspect of life that shouldn't be in the novel because the novel needs to focus on the plot or the character development, etc. And so I think that does that really well here and helps like expand the world of Machineries of Empire. But also we get to revisit parts of Sheris and Jadao's life. And it's awesome. But, you know, I love those characters. So that's just for me, like, icing on the cake. It's everything. If you love Sheris and Jadao, you have to read this collection. That's all I can say. Like, you have to. I don't think it's required reading for the trilogy unless you love those characters. The next books I'll talk about were in my series I want to start in 2021, so go me. Not really continuing that many series this month, but I started a few. And let's start with a big one, and that is Gardens of the Moon by Steven Erikson. It's always so shiny, so I will put an image up. But I read it, and boy, it was a marathon, a mountain hike, whatever I called it in my review, which I have both a review and a spoiler reaction vlog for that book. I'm going to do it for all the Malazan books that I read. Man, it was a lot of work, but I think for me, it was worth it. I could see it not being worth it for a lot of people, so I can totally see why people are like, nah, not for me. But man, I got to the end of that book and I was just like, yeah, that was good. I was really happy. How to describe Gardens of the Moon? It is one of those high epic fantasy series that has 10 books. I will say I was surprised because it is its own thought. It definitely leaves you with ideas for where future plot arcs could go with these characters, but the book within itself, the ideas and tensions and troubles it introduces are relatively wrapped up by the end. The world is vibrant and colorful and full of magic, which is my favorite thing. I love fantasy books that are full of magic. And that's definitely here. The world building, like I say in my review, is very, you don't get to have someone hold your hand. You have to just observe, which I think works better for some people than others. Just depends. For me, I could really only read a chapter a day in the middle because it is a dense work. Like very dense. So yeah, if you want more of my thoughts, like I said, I have like an hour of thoughts on this book on this channel, so you can go look at that. But I am pleasantly surprised. I really had no expectations, but I had a really good time, so that was like really exciting for me. The next one I'll talk about is Ship of Magic by Robin Hobb. I finally did it. It's been on TBRs 4 months, and I did it, guys. And I really liked it. I really liked it. I'm shocked. I'm going to have a review, and I already actually filmed a spoiler vlog, and they will be up probably the weekend after you see this. I still have to collect my thoughts. I just finished it 2 days ago, and I'm so confused about my reading experience with it. Kind of similar to Gardens of the Moon, which was its own weird, unique experience, is that Ship of Magic hurt me, like, a lot, like gutted me, made me feel emotions that are negative. Like it wasn't good emotions. And yet I read 230 pages of it in 1 day, which for me, my reading speed, unheard of. That doesn't happen with me. And it's like, 230 pages of a mass market paperback, like that's tiny fonts. So yeah, I don't know. What I will say about this book, based off talking to other friends and based off my experience, is that this is a very character-driven story. Kind of like how I felt the first trilogy was very character-driven. If you didn't like Fitz, I don't see how you like the Farseer trilogy. Like, it's all about Fitz. Here, at least, you have lots of characters, and hopefully you can latch onto one of them. What was weird for me is for a good portion of the book, I didn't, like, love anybody, but, like, I was very invested in all the viewpoints and all the angles they represented. I think a lot of these characters are extremely human for me. Like, I really felt like they were real people, but that meant they came with all the human flaws, and I think that led to a lot of my anger. I was just like, oh my goodness, why are you doing this? Or there's a certain character that like is the worst. Like, I don't think I've ever hated a character more. I hated this character so much that I thought of do I have enough characters I hate to make characters I hate video? Which I don't think I do, but boy, if I ever do, he's on it, because he is despicable. But this story is such a good book within its own right in terms of what you're following, but it's one of the best setup books I've ever read. Like, where it leaves off is both like good, it's a good cathartic like breaking point, but also I want to pick up Mad Ship like right now. And I don't think I'll be able to. You've seen my February TBR, so it's not on deck for February. I would like to read it in March, but I need to get back to the Witcher series because it's been a minute since I've read one, and I only have 2 books left and a short story collection, so I need to get going on that. But man, I was not expecting to finish this and want to pick up the next book, because that's not an emotion I had with the Farseer trilogy. I thought they were all good. They were great reads. Had a good time. She has a wonderful writing style, has a way of getting you invested, but a way of also making you really, really hurt. Like, I would not read this book without looking into trigger warnings, which I'm going to try and have in my Storygraph review, but I'm sure they're in many other people's, because it's so realistic. Like, she really highlights the injustices of the world in her works. And I think this one more than Farseer, because Farseer, we're just watching the world be cruel to one character, and here it's like, it's a whole economy. It's a whole conversation about the patriarchy. It's like a whole thing, and it really hurts. Even though at its core, it's kind of, oh, poor rich kids, they don't get what they want, but it's a little more than that. But like, at its surface, it could be easily described as that. The last book I have to talk about, I read for my local book club, and this was The Innocents, and this was quite lovely, although really dark. I think I really like survivor stories. This is a story that takes place, I believe, in the late 18th century in Newfoundland, Canada. You have these 2 orphan kids of like 10 and 12 years old whose parents die, and they live in this cove that gets called Orphans Cove, and they survive there. And that's the crux of the story. It's kind of like a really perverse take on, I think, you know, like Paradise for Adam and Eve. Even the names of the characters kind of play on that. And there are some trigger warnings that I'm not going to mention because I do think it kind of like spoils the plot if I mention it. But it was something. Realistically, nothing happened. Like, you just watch them live day to day, and there are moments of tension because of weather and, you know, just the act of surviving. But most of the time, you're just watching these 2 kids live. And so I guess plot-wise, that's not very intriguing, and character-wise, I don't think they develop that greatly. Like, there is introspection, but not a lot. But I read it so quickly. I was completely absorbed in this wilderness and watching these people survive, and constantly wondering how the people that interact with these children didn't like take them away. Like, I know it's like the 1700s, but also like they named a cove after these orphans. Everyone knows they're there, and it's like Newfoundland, Canada is north. It is cold, and I say that as I'm freezing in my own apartment, but it's like even colder than this. But it was great, and I was worried because this is a poet who wrote it. So I've read recently in a previous wrap-up, I think the December wrap-up, I read a work by a poet, and that one had some like stream of consciousness stuff, so that can be really hard. And this one was just actually just really lyrical. It was really great, really consumable, and I loved it. I think one complaint people in the book club had is because he was pulling from the time period, there's some slang in words that you can't really look up. You have to use context clues to figure out what's being said there. For me, I didn't care, but my normal approach to I don't know words in a book is keep going, and if it matters, adjust course sort of thing. But yeah, those were the 7 books I read this month. I am pretty happy with it. I think I really enjoyed, for the large part of it, everything I read. There were no huge disappointments, really only really exciting things. And I am excited to keep reading this month, and really excited that I just finished my last book of the month, because tomorrow I get to start some really awesome books that were on my February TBR. What was a book you really enjoyed or really didn't enjoy in January? I'd love to hear, especially if you have any recommendations based off anything I said in this video. And if you just want to leave an emoji to let me know that you're here, well, pick an emoji based off any of the books that I mentioned. I'm leaning towards snow. I had a lot of snow works this month. So if you want to leave like a snowflake, you know, you don't want to think of it yourself, I think that would work. And otherwise, like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.